Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the May 13th Water Committee meeting. We have Director Arbour online and most other directors are in the room. I'd like to start by welcoming and acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory, unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. Okay, the first item on the agenda is the resolution status report. Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions or comments on that report? Seeing none, anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. And the next item is the Comox Valley Water Management Advisory Minutes. Is there a motion for receipt? Moved and seconded. And any discussion or questions on that report, on those minutes? Seeing none, anyone opposed to receipt? Seeing none, that's carried. Thank you. Okay, so the main item on the agenda today is the Water Conservation Bylaw Amendment, reduced stage 2 watering durations. Okay, moved and seconded for receipt, and we'll pass it over to staff to speak to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the Water Committee. Chris LaRose, our Senior Manager of Water and Wastewater Services, will be introducing this report, and between Chris and other staff, we'll be able to answer any questions you may have. So, Chris, over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, James, and through the chair, good afternoon, everyone. So attached to the report on the agenda is a letter received from the City of Courtenay in early April, requesting that the CVRD or that the Water Committee consider changes to the Water Conservation Bylaw to reduce the watering durations. So the report, also attached to the report is a bylaw amendment in response. And so within the letter, the city acknowledges the ongoing water master planning process that the CVRD is undertaking and has suggested a two-phase approach to reducing water durations with the aim of helping to reduce water consumption in the valley. So first phase to occur this year. So the request was for it to apply to stage 1 and 2 and to reduce those durations by a third. And then the next phase would be in 2026 after completion of the water master plan and with sufficient time to provide lots of notice to the community. So the changes that we've brought forward are to stage 2 only. So to that first part, in terms of reducing stage 1, just given the timing of receiving the letter, the automatic shift to stage 1 on May 1st, that we felt didn't provide adequate time to communicate, to educate the public about those changes. So our recommended approach is to make the change to stage 2. And then the actual reduction that we're proposing is closer to, or is a 25% rather than 33% reduction, and that's because we feel a reduction, or keeping it to the closest half hour, makes it easy to communicate to the public again. So the approach we've taken is to keep the same start times for the watering times, but just reduce each of the 4 available times by a half an hour, which works out to the 25%. Reducing by a third would have meant going to rounding up to 1 hour and 20 rather than 1 hour and 30. So that's the approach that we're recommending. One of the water conservation measures being assessed by the Water Master Plan is a deeper reduction in water durations, and the reason we push back on making a much more significant cut this year is just the risk of unintended consequences. We have several areas within the service area that have acute water shortage, water capacity issues during sprinkling times, notably the Ridge and Crown Isle, where they're heavily irrigated, and we see a significant spike in consumption during those watering times. Thought is if we reduce those, we may see that situation may go from acute to catastrophic. So the water master planning, the modeling inherent to that will help us better assess before we bring back a more robust reduction of restrictions for next year. Yeah, that's all for me, but I'm happy to support discussion or answer any questions.
Great, thank you, Chris. And we'll open up for discussion, and we've got alternate director Wells. Go ahead, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, thanks very much for the explanation. I know in another world I wear another hat, but I know my history here on the Water Committee. One of the concerns that I had many years ago around the watering timelines is that when restrictions go into play, sometimes I think from the CVRD or from the Water Committee perspective, it's these are the hours that you may water your lawn, but the reality tends to be that a lot of people feel that they must water their, especially their lawns, these periods of time. And I think one of the things in the city's request was and I totally get the May 1st deadline, and the sausage maker takes time to do things, even to get to this point. But one of the things in there was about being very specific to the lawn watering and making sure that in terms of the watering for food and those kinds of things wasn't necessarily targeted. And so again, I can certainly recognize the timeline's pretty tight, but I'm just wondering if this is something that happens this year, are those things that are going to be contemplated more fulsome in that master plan, and then maybe communications and stuff around that for next year? Or
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the intent. So the master planning process is nearing completion, or in the final few months. So we expect to have that complete by the fall. So then brought through the committee for discussion and have our approach nailed down certainly by the end of the year, which will provide the first half of the first few months of next year to really develop the communications and education of the public well in advance of the automatic implementation of stage 1 on May 1st. Yeah.
And again, casting back, there was a bit of a push, using slogans like "brown is beautiful." I think "blonde is beautiful" might be an alternative to that one as well. But are those types of things happening so far? And I'm not sure that I picked up any of that last year, or is that again something that's a little bit more future focused?
No, we have actually I was just reviewing today the ads and both print and radio that are going out over the next few weeks as we gear up for the stage 2. And so they focus those eight different tips that depending on the publication, either all presented together or presented one at a time for like the radio ads. So they include that one as well as 7 others that are geared to help people think about their water consumption and help to give them ideas for how to reduce it. So that's in place for this year. So I mentioned the water conservation measures that are being assessed by the Water Master Plan. One of them is a greatly enhanced educational component, enhanced rebates. So we're looking at a range of means to help further reduce consumption, in addition to modeling the benefits or the positive impacts of universal water metering. So those will be closely assessed and then modeled through that process to help inform the decision makers as we bring the data back to you, to this committee in the fall.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And we'll go over to Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I'm just curious about whether we're doing anything additional in relation to enforcement and whether we have any capacity to notify the public of what sort of enforcement does take place. We get a fair amount of criticism in relation to water, as well as some of our other bylaws, that the rules are great, but nobody ever gets fined or chastised for breaking them. So I'm just wondering if there's anything different that we're doing collectively to address that concern.
Sure. Yeah. So the current configuration is that CVRD manages enforcement for the rural area, so function 305 and the town of Comox. And then the city of Courtenay manages enforcement within their bounds. So for the portion under CVRD responsibility, we transitioned 2 or 3 years ago from more of a educational model to more enforcement. So that we transitioned from an educator who was employed by the water department to, and rarely gave out a ticket. I think he gave out several tickets just over the years that he was on the job. Transitioned to having it done by CVRD bylaw, the bylaw team. And since then, we've had almost 200 tickets issued. So we've really stepped up the enforcement side. And I understand that the city is taking a stronger tact, or plans to take a stronger tact this year, and start issuing tickets as well. Whereas in the past, they've relied on the ambassador program, which has been more the educational approach.
Do you have another question? Go ahead. Thank you. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you would. There you go.
Thanks, Chair. Just wondering if it's possible to broadcast that information about the number of tickets that have been issued in the past, as perhaps a reminder to people that there are consequences, and a reminder to those who are critical that we do in fact enforce.
Sure, yeah, I'll take that away and chat with our communications staff to see how we might weave that messaging into the material.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I know sometimes we hear about folks really wanting fines, and I'm not sure how many repeat offenders we have, but I mean, I think those are the areas that if there's somebody who's consistently breaking the rules, then maybe there needs to be more consequences for that. Okay, we'll go over to Director Grieve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I know for the last 10 or 12 years, at least, we've been trying to get this message across. Basically, the fact is that the lawns just don't need that much water. And, at one time we had these little cups you could put out. I think it was, what did you say, a salmon can a week will keep your lawn green. Unless you live in extraordinary sandy soil or something with real super drainage. So people are misunderstanding the amount of grass, the amount of water grass takes to keep it alive and green. And so I just don't know how we can emphasize that any more than we've tried to over the last decade or more. So, but I think in reality, it is the education piece that needs to, we can't give up on that, because people are basically, too busy to be aware. I mean, luckily, some people have automated systems and they can program it properly. But just the regular and Joe and Jill lunchbox out there to go. They turn on the sprinkler and go inside. Forget about it.
Okay, thank you. We'll go back to Director Wells. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and yeah, thanks for that. I'm not sure. I know how big a salmon can is, although I was given a new thing. The city now has frisbees, and if your frisbee fills up, if it's upside down, that's another gauge. But yeah, I mean, it's only a few inches of water that's required, and I guess kind of going back, understanding the complexities and waiting for that second stage, whether or not they're like obviously it's been contemplated, but if we were to say, rather than reduce it to what's recommended, but to have further reductions for July 1st, I'm just not sure if any works have been done, again, communications, et cetera. But if there was an increased reduction to try to emphasize the need for this year, how that might impact works within the CVRD, and then obviously through the municipalities that are distributing the water.
So just
Yes, sorry, it sounds like isn't that what you're suggesting, that would kick in on July 1st?
Yeah, I was just going to ask for clarity, because we do have the bylaw is recommending a 25% reduction for July 1st. Were you suggesting deeper than 25%? Or
But Yeah, I thought the city's recommendation was higher than that, was it?
It was a third, yeah.
Yeah, so, and, um, and so, yeah, I mean, it's just that 10% or 8%, like, is there a reason why, I guess, just for me, just articulating why the 25% versus the 33?
Yeah, so the rationale is twofold. Primarily, it was just to reduce confusion with the public. Um, so keeping it to the closest half hour just makes it easy to understand and change their controllers. And then the second one is just back to that concern about the unintended consequences of reducing the watering durations. Because while I agree with you that that there are many people who likely turn their water on for as long as they're allowed to, I don't think that's the case for most of the homes. Um, and then we have, there's this whole other sector of townhouses and strata buildings where they're already struggling to, according to the complaints that we received, to fit in all of their zones and all of their watering within that time. So further compressing it, we do have that concern about unintended consequences and having, turning those acute water shortages that we currently have in zones like Crown Isle and the Ridge into a situation where we're like depressurizing the system because so many people are trying to, pack their watering into a significantly reduced time. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry, and you did say that before, so my apologies
it's
for
okay.
making you say it a second
It's
time.
okay.
But I do appreciate that, and I think, and I didn't see it on today's agenda, but I know, the water consumption reports, generally, the one following the stage 1 restrictions can sometimes be a bit depressing because you see the May 1st start and the water use actually increases. And it just seems so counterintuitive and that's probably, like, I feel a little emotional about it when I think about it, even still. But yeah, I really appreciate the feedback. Thanks.
Great, thanks. We don't have anyone online. I just wanted to ask, obviously, we're going to get a report back after this, if we implementing this change. And we'll see, the consumption for sure, but will there be anything else kind of added to that report in terms of, you know, eh, folks that didn't follow the rules, like any of that sort of more anecdotal or narrative kind of feedback on the report going forward, like in terms of the behavioral change aspect?
So the next report we would, so we early last year, was it the previous year, we committed to having a monthly dashboard. So this year will be the same. We'll be bringing forward the first dashboard in June and then the last one in November, along with a closeout report where we report out on this year's drought conditions and water restrictions. So are you asking if we could add a component to that speaks to enforcement and
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm just wondering if there's any, I guess just anything that stands out as being different now that we're changing,
Yeah.
changing what we're doing.
Yeah, we could certainly look into how to weave in that piece into our monthly report. Just, comparison of to last year and any anecdotal observations regarding the impact.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could also help inform, going forward as well.
Yeah.
I wanted to add in one of the reports, it also talked about, just kind of thinking ahead to the water master plan in terms of down the road, looking at different strategies like incentives for reducing lawn and putting in more native plants and things like that. So, so that's all part of the work that's kind of going on right now.
Yes.
I think we're sort of in that in-between spot and we're trying to come up with a solution that, helps us increase those restrictions, but also allows that time for the water master plan to be completed. So if there's no other questions, I think we'll just dispense with receipt and there is a recommendation. Okay, moved by Cohamilton and Kerr, seconded, and all in favor. Okay, great. That's unanimous. Thanks so much. And it looks like that's the end of our agenda. Great. Seconded. Okay, thanks all.